5. So what should it be our theoretical exit price? We get 19. So that is your Roman letter 2. We now got the Roman letter 3, the value for the right. Roman letter 2 will be the value for the right. So value for the right, I had given you 3 formulas, but my advice was that you just pick one of them. So one of the formula was market price per share minus the theoretical exit price. To get the value of the right, you simply take market price per share minus the theoretical exit price. So market price per share is 20, theoretical exit price you have said is 19. So that should be our Roman letter 3. That should be our Roman letter 3. So there were 3 formulas there, but you just choose to use the one that is available. Yeah, either of the remaining 2, all of them will give you the same answer. So remember the other one? It was market price per share minus the offer price divided by the number of the rights plus 1, isn't it? Yeah, so as we know the market price per share is 20, the offer price is 15. So when you take 20 minus 15, then you divide by 5 because it's the number of the rights plus 1. Yeah, you can confirm that whether it will give you the same value. So anyway, they will give you the same value. So let us now go to part C of the question. We now check what is there as part C. So part C of the question, they were saying that evaluate the impact of the right issue in B above. Evaluate the impact of the right issue in B above on the value of the wealth of an existing shareholder who holds 1,600 ordinary shares in Manji Masuri Limited and 10,000 in his savings account, assuming that this shareholder decides to, Roman letter 1, exercise all his rights. Roman letter 2, sell all his rights. Roman letter 3, ignore the right issue. So I said we normally compare all of those 3 options before and after the right issue. So we start with before the right issue. We can first check what was there before the rights issue. We start with before the rights issue. So we can start with before the right issue. So what was the position before the right issue? Before rights issue. So we check before the right issue. So before the right issue, I can start with the percentage of ownership. Percentage of ownership. So percentage of ownership before the right issue. They are saying the investor has how many shares? 1,500. Then you remember existing number of ordinary shares were 1 million. The existing number of the ordinary shares we calculated, they were 1 million. They were 1 million. So that will give you the percentage of ownership. Then apart from the percentage of ownership, we also calculate the wallet status. So for the wallet status, we start with the value of the shares. Value of the shares. So he has 1,600 shares. But before the right issue, you value them at the current market price, which was 20 shillings. But apart from that, he has some money in the savings account. They had said that he has some money in the savings account. You can see under part C. Part C. How much does he have in the savings account? Yeah, so 10,000 in his savings account. So we also add the savings account. So that money in the savings account is 10,000. So you add them together, give you the total. them together to get the total amount. It comes to 42. So that is now before the right issue. So we want now to check after the right issue. The three options after the right issue, we compare with that information. So let us now check after the right issue. We now want to confirm after the right issue. After the right issue. So after the right issue, after the rights issue, after the rights issue. So after the right issue, we shall first get the total number of the shares for the investor. Total shares. Total shares. We start with the total shares in the company. Total shares in the company. So total shares in the company. Remember 1 million plus 0.25 million. So they are just 1.25 million. Remember, existing number of the shares are 1 million, but they issued 250,000 shares. So when you add them together, they come to 1.25 million. Those are the total number of the shares after the right issue. But we also need to get the total shares for the investor. We also need to get the total shares for the investor. We also need to get the total number of the shares for the investor. So total number of the shares for the investor, the number of the rights are for every 4 shares. For every 4 shares, you get 1 new share. For every 4 shares, you get 1 new share. But this investor has a total of how many shares? 1,600. So he has 1,600. So how many new shares is he going to acquire? How many new shares is he going to acquire? So we cross multiply. We cross multiply. We get 1,600 multiplied by 1 divided by 4. We get the 1,600 multiplied by 1 divided by 4. So it will be how many shares? It will be 400 shares. So total shares, you now take the 1,600 plus 400. Total shares for the investor. Now you take the 1,600 plus the 400. The 1,600 plus the 400. So there are going to be how many shares? There will be 2,000 shares. There will be 2,000 shares. So after now getting the 2,000 shares, we now go to option 1. So option 1 is exercise all his rights. We start now with option 1. Remember, I had calculated the percentage of ownership of the investor and the work status of the investor before the right issue. So now we want to check all the 2 items after the right issue under each option. After the right issue under each option. So the first option there is exercise of the rights. The first option there is meant to be exercise of the rights. So we start off with option 1. So option 1 is meant to be exercise of the rights. Option 1 will now be exercise of the rights. So under the exercise of the rights, we start again with percentage of ownership. Percentage of ownership. So after the right issue, the investor has 2,000 shares. But total shares in the firm is 1.25 million shares. So express it as a percentage. Express it as percentage. you express that value as a percentage. You express that value as a percentage. So the percentage of ownership will not change. The same as before the right issue. So apart from the percentage of ownership, we now also check about the wealth status. The wealth. So for the wealth status, we start with the value of the shares. We start off with value of the shares. So value of the shares, he has 2,000 shares. But remember I said after the right issue, all shares are valued at the theoretical ex-right price. After the right issue, all shares are valued at the theoretical ex-right price. Remember it was how much? So multiplied by 90, like that. Then he still have his money in the savings account. He still have some money in the savings account. So in the savings account, he had 10,000. Then apart from that, less the cost of the rights. You less cost of the rights. So he acquired 400 new ordinary shares. Those are the shares that acquired. Yeah, that would be now the cost for the rights, but you value them at the issue price. Issue price was it 15? Yeah, so multiplied by 15. Like that. So this figure you will be subtracting so that you get the net wealth. So that we come up with the net wealth. So that we come up with the net wealth. So that we come up with the net wealth. So it has not changed. Now, when you exercise the right issue, percentage of ownership and wealth status will not change. You remain the same as before the rights issue. So that's now Roman letter 1. That will be, even though the question only wanted the wealth part, the question only wanted the wealth. You can see the question. They said that evaluate the impact of the right issue in part B above on the value of wealth. But it is always good also to know the percentage of ownership. So there are 2 items, but this question was specific. It was only about the wealth status. But if it remains silent, you do the same for the percentage of ownership and the wealth status. So let us now go to Roman letter 2. Yes, yes. Because he bought those shares. Alinunua. Menunua. Yeah, you are doing like a barter trade. You went to the market, you bought something, then you come and sold. So you should get the net difference. So he had 1,600 shares. But now he has how many shares? 2,000. So the current price per share is this. But before he got them, he had bought them. So we want to get the net wealth. So shares alinunua na pesa yake. Yeah, so we minus what went out before we acquired the shares. Yeah, so that's why we have to less. You remember this cost of the rights. Right issue is where you are given additional shares at a lower price than the market price. So you bought them, you gave money to the company. So the money you are using is the one in the account? No. That one is different, unless they explain it. If they say that you use the money in the savings account, then it should be subtracted from the savings account. Yeah, the savings account should be less. But here we assume you have your own money from elsewhere. So what should be your net? Well, there's sometimes they will deduct it from the dividends. Instead of being paid a dividend at the end of the year, they use it to give you the shares. So it has also reduced your dividend. So finally, it will have a net wealth, whereby you net the cost that you incurred. Yeah, because you have seen people buying shares in there. Let's say companies are right issue. You have heard about oversubscription of the shares. Like Safaricom, when they were issuing the shares, people bought shares beyond the minimum requirement. So they were buying them at a new price, but already they had some other shares. So in that company, what was his net wealth? You subtract the cost you incurred to acquire the shares. Like here, we are just looking for the profit. We are looking at the profit. So you bought the shares at this, but now they are going at, so what profit do you have? So that's why you have to less the cost to get the net wealth. So that's now when you exercise the rights. Roman letter 2 is about what? Sale of the rights. We go to Roman letter 2 as the sale of the rights. So when it comes to sale of the rights, we start again with the percentage of ownership. Start again with the percentage of the ownership. So that Roman letter 1, we start again with the percentage of ownership. Sale of the rights. So we start off with the percentage of ownership. Percentage of ownership. So he sold the rights. He sold the 400. Will be left with the original shares in hand, which was 16. Then when you sell to other shareholders. Total shares in the company will not be affected. Yeah. Like the way you are in this class, you give the shares to your neighbor. So total shares in this class will still remain the same. But for you, it has gone down. For your colleague, it has gone up. So you want to know your position. So it will be still 1.25 like that. Then you express it as a percent. So your wallets, your percentage of ownership will definitely go down. Your percentage of ownership will increase. Your percentage of ownership is. Then you will also be required to calculate the wealth status. So wealth status, we start with the value of the remaining shares. Value of the remaining shares. So it is remaining with 1,600 shares. But we have said that after the right issue, all of them are valued at the theoretical X-right price. So you multiply by 90. And also add sale of the rights. Sale of the rights. Because you are selling to get money. So you will sell the 400. But when you are selling again, you will still sell at the theoretical X-right price. After the right issue, all shares are valued at the theoretical X-right price. Then you still have some money in the savings account. You also add the savings account. You had 10,000. But now you also have to less the cost of the rights because you acquired those shares. You less cost of the rights. So he acquired 400 shares, but at the offer price, which was 50. So that figure you minus, so that you get the net wealth. So that we get the net wealth. So that we come up with the net wealth. So wallet status will not change when you sell the rights, but your percentage of ownership will reduce. And also remember, when you exercise, both of them will not change. So what it has in mind is percentage of ownership. So finally, we go to the last one. Finally, we check the last one. The last one, Roman letter 3, is ignore the right issue. Roman letter 3, they wanted you to ignore the rights issue. So when you go to the Roman letter 3, where we say that ignore the rights issue. Ignore the rights issue. So when you ignore the rights issue, so option 3, ignore the right issue. When you ignore rights issue. So when you ignore, it means you have not participated in the right issue. When it was taking place, you were just there. You did not buy the shares. So your percentage of ownership, you did not participate. Will be left with your original shares that you have. But even if you don't participate, the company must raise the required capital. Other people will buy your shares. Other people will buy. So total shares in the company will still remain 1.25 million. So your percentage of ownership will reduce. Your percentage of ownership will go down. Your percentage of ownership will go down. Then we also need to get your wealth status. You also compute your wealth status. So when you are computing your wealth status, we start with the value of the shares. Value of the shares. So you have only 1,600 shares. But the 1,600 shares, you value them at the current market, the theoretical exit price, which was 19. Then you also add the savings account. You also add the savings account, which was 10. So there was no cost for the rights because you did not buy the shares. So there will be no cost for the rights. So you just get your net wealth at that point. Net wealth at that point. Yeah, so you did not participate in the right issue, there will be no cost for the rights. So you are to evaluate the impact. You are to evaluate the impact. So that impact, you have seen that when you check the wallet status before the right issue and after the right issue, when you exercise, it will remain the same, the wallet. When you sell, it will still remain the same. But when you ignore, it will reduce. So you have to explain that part. So the question did not ask about the percentage of ownership, but I've just done it just in case. They ask both ownership and wealth. But for this one, you are only to explain about the wealth. So now we can make a conclusion by noting that. By noting that, we can now make a conclusion by noting that if the shareholder exercise the right issue, or sell the rights, or sells the rights, his wallet status will remain the same as before the right issue. His wallet status will remain the same as before the right issue. His wallet status will remain the same as before the right issue. It will remain the same as before the right issue. However, if he ignores the right issue, his wallet status will reduce. If he ignores the right issue, comma, his wallet status will reduce. His wallet status will reduce. His wallet status will reduce. So that is the explanation you are to give when you evaluate. When you ignore the right issue, his wallet status will reduce. But if you exercise the rights or sell the rights, his wallet status will remain the same as before the rights issue. The implication there is that if you exercise the right issue or sells the right issue, there will be no changes in the wallet status. There will be no changes in the wallet status. It will remain the same as before the right issue. But if you ignored, your wallet status reduced. That was now the impact on that element. So someone was asking me to repeat. I hope you have gotten the point. Yeah. The easiest way to explain is that if you sell or exercise, the wallet status will not change. It will remain the same as before the rights issue. But if you ignore, it will reduce. That's the general comment. And finally, if they ask you to pick the best option is always to exercise the right issue. The best option is normally to do what? To exercise the right issue. The best option is always to exercise the right issue because there is no changes. There is no changes in the percentage of ownership and the wallet status. The best option is normally to exercise the right issue because there is no changes in the wallet status and percentage of ownership. There will be no changes in the wallet status and the percentage of ownership. You have seen when you sell, your percentage of ownership will reduce, even though the wallet will remain. But if you ignore, both of them will do what? Will reduce. That's now the comment, just in case they will ask you to give them that information. So finally, there is one more last question I want us to go through. Yes.
Market price per share is dividend.
It's not dividend.
It's dividend.
Yeah, ex-dividend, it has not included dividend. Come dividend, you subtract dividend. With our phones, there's a place which will be discussing in details. What do we mean by come dividend? What do we mean by ex-dividend? What do we mean by come all or ex-all? So that's now when we shall go back to that element because it was only about the cost of capital. As the topic of the cost of capital, I was only saying that I'm calculating the cost of capital for us to answer the question. But finally, I've not shown you the element of how the cost of capital is a topic of its own. So when we discuss it, is when we shall go into details of those items. So the last question I would like us now to go through. The last question I would like us to go through. This one should be made. So it is May 2017. May 2017, question number 2, part B. May 2017. There is a question number 2, part B. May 2017. There is a question number 2, part B. May 2017, question 2, part B. So that question 2, part B, you have been told about Nyaduso Limited is making a 1 1-for-4 right issue is making a 1-for-4 right issue, costing 6.4. So that 6.4 is the issue price. Then the number of the rights are 4. So the company has 4 million issued, 4 million shares in issue with a market price of 10.80 per share. The new shares are expected to yield 5% earnings and price earning ratio of how many times? 10 times. So now when it comes to required, Roman letter 1, the theoretical X-right price. Roman letter 2, the value per share after the right issue. So the first item is the theoretical X-right price. So to calculate the theoretical X-right price, this one it is easy because we use the shorter formula and the question had given you the number of the rights. So to compute your theoretical X-right price, how many rights are there? The 4 shares, value them at the current market price. They have said the current market price is how much? 10.8. So you take 4 shares multiplied by 10.8. 4 shares multiplied by 10.8. So 4 shares multiplied by 10.8. That will give us 3.2. When you have 4 shares, you get 1 new share. 1 new share is valued at the offer price or issue price, which is 6.4. It was given as 6.4. So this will just remain 6.4. So when you add, this will be 5 shares. I think that's the part of what? 49.6. So that your theoretical X-right price will be 49.6 divided by 5. That's now our Roman letter 1. That would be your Roman letter 1. Now we go to Roman letter 2. It is giving us which here. So we go to Roman letter 2. Roman letter 2, you are meant to calculate the Roman letter 2. You can see you are meant to calculate the price per share. That is the value of the share after the right issue. So what should it be? The price of the share. They are simply asking the value per share after the right issue. So they are asking you, I know some people could have calculated the value for the right issue. But hapo wamesema value per share. It's not value for the right, but value of the share. Value of the share will be the same as the market price per share after the right issue. The value for the share there will be the market price per share after the right issue. They have not asked you to calculate the value for the right, but they have calculated the value of the share. So to get the value of the share, the question had given you the concept of the price earning ratio. The question had given you the concept of the price earning ratio. So price earning ratio is normally market price per share divided by the earnings per share. So we make market price per share to be the subject. It will be given by the price earning ratio multiplied by the earnings share. So market price per share will be price earning ratio multiplied by the earning per share. So also to get earning per share will be earnings available, we divide by the number of the ordinary shares. Number of the ordinary shares by the So to get the earnings available, we shall first calculate the current earnings per share. I will first calculate the current earnings per share. So to compute the current earning per share, you simply take the current market price per share. So we are making this earning per share to be the subject. Yeah, so you just take the current market price per share divided by the price earning ratio. Price earning ratio will always remain constant. So to get the current earning per share, you simply take the current market price per share divided by the price earning ratio. Divide by the price earning ratio. Divide by the price earning ratio. Current market price per share, the question gave us which figure? 10.8. Price earning ratio is given as how many times? They gave you 10. So that will be the same as 1.08. Come up with 1.08. So after that, we also need to calculate the new shares to be issued. Also need to get the number of the new shares to be issued, because we want to get after the price per share. So this earning per share must be after the right issue. So also the number of the new shares to be issued. Number of the new shares to be issued. Number of the new shares to be issued. Remember, we simply take existing number of the ordinary shares divided by the number of the rights. To get the number of the rights, we normally take existing number of the ordinary shares divided by the new shares to be issued. So we already have existing number of the ordinary shares, and we also have the number of the rights. So we make the new shares to be issued to be the subject. So you simply take existing number of the ordinary shares. Existing ordinary shares divided by number of the rights. Number of the rights. So existing number of the ordinary shares, you can see in the question, there are 4 million. Is it 4? Yeah. The company has 4 million shares in issue. So you take the 4 millions, divide by the number of the rights are 4. The number of the rights are 4. So this will give us 1 million. It will give you 1 million. So we now get the total earnings available. We now get the total earnings available. So to get the total earnings available, we start the ones from the existing ordinary shares. Existing shares. So existing shares, there are 4 million shares. But we calculated the current earning per share. We had calculated the current earning per share. You can see the current earning per share is 1.08. That will give you earnings available on the existing shares. Just take the existing shares multiplied by the current earnings per share. Then we also compute on the new shares. New shares. So for the new shares, we have seen how many new shares are we going to acquire. It is 1 million. So the 1 million, value it at the offer price. Remember the offer price. Are you able to see the offer price? It was 6.4, but they also continued and said that the new shares are expected to yield what percent earnings? 5%. So take the shares of 1 million, multiply 6.4, then get 5% of that. 5% of that. That will now give you your earnings on the new shares. To give you your earnings on the new shares. Your earnings on the new shares. Get your earnings on the new shares. So once you have added them together, we now get that earning per share after the right issue. So once you have done that, we should now calculate and get the earnings per share after the right issue. So to get our earning per share after the right issue, what are those total earnings that you have just calculated? 4.64 million, isn't it? So number of the shares is 1 million plus, sorry, 4 million plus 1 million. 4 million plus 1 million. So you remember the existing shares are 4 million. The new shares were 1 million. So when you combine them together, they will give you the total number of the shares after the right issue, and also total earnings after the right issue. Then now we can get what should be the earning per share after the right issue. What should be now our earning per share after the right issue? So in a to pair, which figure? 0.928. So that is now the earning per share. What we want is market price per share after the right issue. So you simply, the price earning ratio will always remain constant. And now the earning per share. So we now want to get the market price per share after the right issue. Market price per share after now the right issue. So simply take the price earning ratio. The price earning ratio multiplied by earning per share after the right issue. Earning per share after the right issue. So when you want now to compute value of the share of the right issue is the same as the market price per share after the right issue. We just take the price earning ratio multiplied by the earning per share after the right issue. So price earning ratio will remain, was it 10? Then multiply by 0.928. So that's now the conclusion on that element of the right issue. So I gave you advantages and disadvantages. And we also noted something about the success of the right issue depends on. So I gave you all those items. So what I want us now to write something brief is about applications of the concept of the time value of money. We are concluding that concept of the time value of money. We can write something brief about the applications of the concept of the time value of money. The applications of the concept of the time value of money. The application of the concept of the time value of money. Applications of the concept of the time value of money. So we shall just outline them because we have already discussed them in details. Number one will be capital budgeting decisions. Number one will be the capital budgeting decisions. Capital budgeting decisions. Capital budgeting decisions, i.e., to determine whether to accept or reject the project. To determine whether to accept or to reject the project. to determine whether to accept or to reject the project. So that is the first application. There is a topic in detail known as capital budgeting. We shall go to that. The number 2 will be to determine the installment payments. To determine the installment payments for the loan borrowed or for the debts. To determine the installment payment for the loan borrowed or the debts. For the loan borrowed or debts. As you remember how to get an installment under the loan repayment schedule. Yeah. The number 3 will be that to determine the future value and the present value. To determine the future value and the present value of the project cash flows. To determine the future value and the present value of the project cash flows. So you are also able to start how to get the future value or the present value. Then finally, the last one is that to explain the reasons why investors prefer current cash than the future cash. Investors prefer the current cash than the future cash. They prefer the current cash than the future cash. So that now concludes that topic of the concept of the time value of money and the right issues. The concept of the time value of money and the right issues. Remember, the right issue was coming in because of right market price per share. To get the right market price per share, there was net present value. And we will only compute the net present value if we discount the cash flows to get the present value. So now we start a new topic. We start a new topic as capital budgeting decisions or investment decisions. Now a new topic will be the capital budgeting. Now we got the capital budgeting. The capital budgeting or investment decisions. Capital budgeting or investment decisions. We now go to the capital budgeting or investment decisions. The capital budgeting or the investment decisions. So there are some notes I've sent to the class group about the sources of finance. So online, there are some notes I had sent to the class group concerning the sources of finance. So that topic is examinable. Yeah. You see, you get those notes, either you print them, don't read them on your soft copy. I know the challenge. Yeah, you rather print them and keep them in your file. It will be easier for you for the revision purpose. If you cannot get them, take a point to come to the school. I will give you a copy. But if you leave them on your soft copy, I know the time of revision, it will not be easy for you. Even by that time, I know that group might have been overloaded by some other notes, and you may not access them. So make sure that you print those notes and keep them in your file, even for the future reference. Yeah, you either print, if you cannot be able to do that, come to the school, I will give you a copy. Yeah, so that's now on the right issues. And also, so that handout, it also has the right issue, the theory part, because it was one of the sources of finance. So we start now a new topic, which I'm referring to as capital budgeting or investment decisions. We now start a new topic as the capital budgeting or investment decisions. Sorry, that's something. So we can now go through that new item, which is meant to be in capital budgeting or investment decisions. So online, you did not confirm to me whether you have seen the notes. No one confirmed to me whether they have seen the notes. You have seen the notes for the sources of finance. Yeah, so let us now start on the capital budgeting or investment decisions. The capital budgeting or the investment decisions. So we can introduce by summarizing that. We can summarize that this involves commitment of the funds. This involves commitment of the funds. It involves the commitment of the funds in the long-term projects. Commitment of the funds in the long-term projects, which will generate benefits in the future. This involves commitment of the funds in the long-term projects, which will generate benefits in the future, which will generate benefits in the future. So it involves the commitment of the funds in the long-term projects, which will generate benefits in the future. Then another paragraph is that capital budgeting projects normally have the following features or characteristics. They normally have the following features or characteristics, They normally have the following features or simply the characteristics. So number one is that they are irreversible projects. They are irreversible projects. They are irreversible projects. So under that, you note that once the project has been undertaken, it will be difficult to abandon the project. Once the project has been undertaken, it will be difficult to abandon the project. Once the project has been undertaken, it will be difficult to abandon the project. It will be difficult to abandon the project. So in the moment you start that project, make sure that you complete it for you to get the benefit. That's now the key feature of the capital budgeting projects. Once you start, you make sure that you have done what? Completed. Even what you are doing now is a capital project. If you don't finish your CPA, it may not add value to you in the future. To get full potential benefit from it, make sure you have done what? You have finished. Yeah. So even in this case, when you start a project like constructing a building, unless it is complete, it can't generate you any revenue. That's now the feature of the capital budgeting projects. Once you start, make sure it is done what? It is complete for you to get the benefit. If you abandon, you lose. So now you are in a section level 2. You are in the intermediate level 1. So what will happen to your foundation if you abandon? See, it will go at a loss. You can't recover it. So once you start a project, you make sure that it is what? It is completed. That's now one of the rule of the capital budget. Number 2 is time. Number 2 is about the time. Number 2 is now the time. So when it comes to the time, we note that the projects normally last for a long period of time. The projects normally last for a long period of time. The projects normally last for a long period of time. The projects normally last for a long period of time. So that investment should not just be for 1 day or 2 days. You start a project which will be your investment for a long period of time. Number 3 will be initial investment. Number 3 will be initial investment. So under the initial investment, we note that they normally involve significant commitment of the funds. They normally involve significant commitment of the funds at the initial stage of the project. They normally involve significant commitment of the funds at the initial stage of the project. 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 The number 4 is about future benefits. Number 4 is about the future benefits. The future benefits. So under the future benefits, we note that the benefits of the amount invested today will be realized in the future. The benefits of the amount invested today will be realized in the future. The benefits of the amount invested today will be realized in the future. Will be realized in the future. The number 5 will be about the risk. Number 5 will be about the risk. The feature number 5 is the risk. So under the risk, we note that since it involves commitment of the funds now, since it involves commitment of the funds now, in order to generate the future benefits, in order to generate the future benefits, there is a risk about realizing the future benefits. There is a risk about realizing the future benefits. There is a risk about realizing the future benefits. There is a risk about realizing the future benefits. So that is now about the features. So those features, some questions they refer to them as the principles. So I want you to check May 2016. May 2016, question 1, part A. May 2016, there is a question number 1, part A. You check May 2016, question 1, part A. So that question 1, part A for May 2016, there is a question number 1, part A, where you are to explain 4 principles of the capital budgeting. So the first one, projects are irreversible. The first principle, the projects are what? Irreversible. You must complete the project. It also requires a lot of initial capital. The other principle is the project must last for a long period of time. So those are the principles of the capital budget. Those will be the principles of that part of the capital budget. So let us now have a subtopic as types of the capital budgeting projects. We can now look at the types of the capital budgeting projects. Types of the capital budgeting projects. Types of the capital budgeting projects. So among the types of the capital budgeting projects, number one will be mutually exclusive projects. Number one should be mutually exclusive projects. Mutually exclusive projects. Mutually exclusive projects. Mutually exclusive projects. So when projects are mutually exclusive, they normally serve the same purpose. When you select one, you automatically reject the other projects. So those are now the projects which are mutually exclusive. So we summarize that these are those projects. These are those projects which serves the same purpose. Which serves the same purpose. They serve, so they serve the same purpose, or they compete against each other. They serve the same purpose, or they compete against each other. They serve the same purpose, or they compete against each other. Or they compete against each other. Therefore, if one project is undertaken, then the other project, if one project is undertaken, then the other project is automatically rejected. If one project is undertaken, then the other project is automatically rejected. Then the other project is automatically rejected. The other project is automatically rejected. That's what meant by mutually exclusive. So those projects which serves the same purpose, we refer to them as mutually. So when you select one, you automatically reject the other. Number two will be independent projects. Number two will be independent projects. Number two will be independent projects. So under independent project, we note that these are those projects which serves different purpose. These are those projects which serves different purpose. They are those projects which serves different purpose, i.e., they will not compete against each other. I.e., they will not compete against each other. They will not compete against each other. They will not compete against each other. And the benefits derived from one project and the benefits derived from one project and the benefits derived from one project will not affect the benefits from the other project, and the benefits derived from one project will not affect the benefits from the other project. Not affect the benefits from the other projects. Then you continue by noting that all these projects can be undertaken simultaneously. All these projects can be undertaken simultaneously. All these projects can be undertaken simultaneously, subject to availability of the funds. Can be undertaken simultaneously, subject to availability of the funds. They can be undertaken simultaneously, subject to the availability of the funds. That's now independent projects. Then number three will be dependent or complementary projects. Dependent or complementary projects. Dependent or complementary projects. Dependent or complementary projects or contingent projects. Or contingent projects. Or also contingent projects. So under that, you note that these are projects. These are projects which depends on each other. These are projects which depends on each other. They are projects which depends on each other. Therefore, if one project is undertaken, then the other project must also be undertaken. If one project is undertaken, then the other project must also be undertaken. Then also the other project must also be undertaken. E.g., if the industry is to be set up, if the industry is to be set up in a particular region, if the industry is to be set up in a particular region, then facilities like construction of the schools, transport facilities or network, housing facilities, etc. must also be set up. So that is now for dependent, complementary, or contingent project. Number 4 will be expansion or diversification project. Expansion or diversification projects. So under expansion or diversification project, we note that it involves the addition of the new investment. On the already existing one. It involves addition of the new investment on the already existing one. Because of the inadequacy of the existing projects. Because of inadequacy of the existing projects, i.e. building of the additional classrooms in the school, So the last one, we talk about divisible and indivisible projects. We also have the divisible and indivisible projects. Also talk about divisible and indivisible projects. So under that, we shall note that divisible projects are those projects Divisible projects are those projects which can start generating revenue. Divisible projects are those projects which can start generating revenue, even before they are complete, which can start generating revenue even before they are complete, which can start generating revenue even before they are complete. While indivisible projects, are those projects, indivisible projects are those projects which cannot generate revenue, unless they are complete. While indivisible projects are those projects which cannot generate revenue unless they are complete, which cannot start generating revenue unless they are complete. So those are now some of the types of the capital investment projects. So you can refer to May 2021. May 2021, question 1, part A. May 2021, question number 1, part A. May 2021, question number 1, part A. Check the question for May 2021, question number 1, part A. Question number 1, part A. So May 2021, question 1, part A. So that question 1, part A, they were asking you to explain 4 categories of the capital investment projects. The 4 categories, those are the same as the types of the capital budgeting projects. So they wanted you to explain 4 categories of the capital investment projects. So those are some of the types of the capital investment projects. So now after that, we have a subtopic as projects evaluation techniques. We can now also have a subtopic as projects evaluation techniques. Projects evaluation techniques. The projects evaluation techniques. So under the projects evaluation techniques, we summarize that this involves the cost-benefit analysis. It involves the cost-benefit analysis. It involves the cost-benefit analysis. The cost-benefit analysis in order to determine which project to be accepted or rejected. So this involves the cost-benefit analysis in order to determine which project to be accepted or rejected. In order to determine which projects to be accepted or rejected. They are classified into 2 categories as follows. They are classified into 2 categories as follows. They are classified into 2 categories as follows. Number one will be non-discounting techniques. Non-discounting techniques. or traditional techniques, non-discounting techniques or the traditional techniques. Then number 2 would be discounting or modern techniques. The discounting or the modern techniques. Discounting or modern techniques. Discounting or the modern techniques. So we start with non-discounting or traditional techniques. Non-discounting or the traditional techniques. Non-discounting or the traditional techniques. So under that, you summarize that these are techniques. These are techniques which will not take into account. They are techniques which will not take into account, the concept of the time value of money. They are techniques which will not take into account the concept of the time value of money. The concept of the time value of money by computing, which will not take into account the concept of the time value of money by computing the present value of the cash flows. By computing the present value of the cash flows. By computing the present value of the cash flows. They include Roman letter 1. Roman letter 1 will be payback period. Roman letter 1 will be payback period. The payback period. Roman letter 2, accounting rate of return. Roman letter 2 will be accounting rate of return. The accounting rate of return. So when we meet in the next class, we shall start with the first one, which is the payback period, which will be the payback period. So we can stop there for now. We can stop there for now.